Fallout New Vegas' Mojave wasteland is a lawless frontier. It's inhabited by those who want a taste of power, those who are trying to flee NCR expansion, and those who subscribe to a new form of savagery. The Fiends, led by a man known as Motor Runner, fall into the last category. The Fiends are a chem-riddled raider faction whose sole motivation seems to be spreading chaos throughout the desert wasteland. Despite their chaotic nature, though, they maintain a relationship with the Great Khans, a mutilated raider faction of old who supply them with the chems that they crave. As such, Fiend leadership tends to appease the Great Khans in any way they can. This has led to a total of one rule the Fiends must follow: stay away from West Side, as Great Khans frequently conduct business there. But getting a group of lawless raiders to follow rules is a bit counterintuitive, right? They became raiders to avoid rules. So Motor Runner, in his limited genius, recognized the need to provide his warband with a home, a place where his people could stay so that they wouldn't occasionally roam into West Side. This is where Vault 3 comes in. Vault 3 was one of two vaults constructed in Las Vegas. Built in the outskirts of the city's industrial sector, Vault 3 was designed as a control vault. This means that, unlike the majority of Vault-Tec vaults, Vault 3 would have no associated experiment with it. It would be designed as intended. It would protect its population from nuclear fallout. For nearly 2 centuries following the war, Vault 3 operated without incident, maintaining its functionality as a secure sanctuary. It wouldn't be until the vault experienced a water leak that they would be forced to open their cog-shaped door for the first time post-war. The water situation, from Lincoln Davis to all residents. Greetings, everyone. As you all saw in the message from Vincent, we're going to have to start rationing water until we can resolve the leaking issues. Unfortunately, we don't currently have the parts required to fix the underlying cause of the leak. At this point, we have no other alternative but to seek the parts that we need from outside the vault. To facilitate this, I'm proud to announce that Michelle Dalian will be forming a new committee, one with the goal of creating ties with whatever civilization there may be in the outside world. Michelle and I both have high hopes that we'll have no problem finding the assets that we need, and hopefully forming some lasting relationships with the outside world. Thank you, Overseer Davis. With the door of Vault 3 now open, its residents would be thrusted into the Mojave's limited post-war society. The former Vault dwellers would actually have some initial success with wasteland trading. They were starting to eke out a life in the radiation-ravaged land. But their naivety would wind up being their downfall. In a misguided attempt to project an image of peace and non-aggression to the outside world, the Vault 3 External Association Committee made the ill-fated decision to forgo maintaining a dedicated security team for their interactions with the outside world. Correspondence between Michelle Dalian and the VEAC can be found in a terminal in the vault. Many of you have asked why we don't have a team dedicated to security. Well, I've talked long about this with George, and we both agree that we don't want to appear as belligerent to the outside world. We'd like to present an open hand instead of a closed fist. This decision would prove fatal. Word of a vault in the Las Vegas outskirts would spread and eventually catch the attention of a man named Motor Runner and his gang of chem-addicted raiders, the Fiends. Exploiting the noticeable absence of security measures, the Fiends launched an assault on the newly opened vault, mercilessly slaughtering its residents and swiftly claiming it as their own. The once secure sanctuary would fall into the hands of ruthless marauders. Established within their new fortified home, the Fiends gained unrestricted control over the southwestern outskirts of Vegas. Under Motor Runner's command, they launched skirmishes against NCR positions and outposts, plundering trade routes and claiming the lives of rangers. While the NCR was more organized, trained better, and potentially possessed better firepower, the Fiends held the advantage in sheer numbers. Their promises of shelter and an abundant supply of chems enticed those who had nowhere else to turn. In addition to their assaults on the NCR military, the Fiends engaged in the despicable act of human trafficking, particularly targeting NCR refugees. Aerotech Office Park served as a refuge for those whose luck had run dry, but the NCR struggled to provide adequate support due to personnel shortages. Captain Parker, the camp's leader, noticed a disturbing trend as some residents began mysteriously disappearing. There were no signs of violence or a struggle, they simply vanished. Parker suspected the involvement of two scavengers from West Side with whom the missing individuals had been seen conducting business. He would task the Courier with investigating. Upon arriving in West Side, the Courier encountered a man named St. James and his partner Dermot. In the course of the conversation, St. James inadvertently revealed knowledge about the missing refugees. Realizing his mistake, he promptly refused to divulge any further information. However, a thorough search of Dermot's room leads to the discovery of a ledger containing damning evidence of the Fiends' involvement. The ledger contained detailed information on the missing refugees, including descriptions, prices in caps, and the identities of those to whom they had been sold. The entries within revealed the true extent of the Fiends' sinister activities. Honestly, the whole Fiends saga is one of the darkest bits of Fallout lore in the entire franchise. I'm amazed that some of the stuff even managed to get into the game. It's wild. As the Fiends continued their relentless attack on both the NCR army and its civilians, they began to pose a greater and greater threat to the NCR as a whole. Compounded by the proximity of their stronghold to Camp McCarran, the NCR's primary base in the Mojave, the constant threat of Fiend activity loomed over the Republic. Action had to be taken. In response to the escalating Fiend attacks, Major Daughtry, an NCR officer stationed at McCarran, issued a bounty on 3 notorious Fiend leaders. This was a measure aimed at neutralizing the Fiend threat and restoring a semblance of safety and stability to the region. Driver Nephi, aptly named after his preferred weapon, wields command over a small group of Fiends stationed at the South Vegas Ruins East entrance. Originally hailing from Utah, Nephi had once been a member of the Mormon Church before succumbing to some sour influences. As of 2281, he is widely recognized as one of the most lethal and feared Fiends in the wasteland. Nephi's exceptional speed and mastery of his golf club have resulted in a staggering number of confirmed kills, surpassing well over 100 NCR victims. His ability to dispatch enemies swiftly and quietly often leaves them unaware of the imminent danger they face. Recognizing the threat Nephi posed, the NCR called upon the formidable 1st Recon Alpha Team in an attempt to neutralize the brutal Fiend leader. However, Nephi's resilience proved to be a significant challenge. He would often cunningly use his Fiend companions as human shields, rendering the sniper's precision ineffective. Even when it was claimed that Betsy, a renowned sharpshooter, had managed to hit him twice, Nephi exhibited no signs of slowing down. It would require the intervention of the Courier to ultimately transform Driver Nephi into Putter Nephi. Next on Daughtry's hit list is the Fiend's dog handler, a woman named Violet. Absolutely zonked out on Psycho, Violet speaks in a rather crude form of broken English. She is the Fiend responsible for raising litters of vicious attack dogs to be used on anyone deemed an enemy. Disturbingly, she boasts about feeding her dogs a macabre diet consisting of cat meat, rat meat, dog meat, and even human flesh. It would be the Courier who would pull an old yeller on Violet. And the final and most unhinged of the local Fiend leaders is a man named Cook. Armed with a flamer, Cook holds the dubious title of the Fiend's infamous chef. Beyond his peculiar fondness of his pet Brahmin Queenie, Cook is an unrepentant psychopath, ranking among the most despicable characters in the entirety of the Fallout franchise. Within the game, 2 female characters have encountered Cook and managed to survive the ordeal. Madame Pretty Sarah of the Casa Madrid apartments narrowly escaped the clutches of Cook, but not without enduring torturous abuse and burns. Likewise, Corporal Betsy, a 1st Recon sharpshooter, also encountered the monster. Following the incident, she was left with deep psychological scars. Betsy's assault further fuels Major Daughtry's personal vendetta against Cook. The Courier would help serve Cook to Daughtry on a silver platter. But these wouldn't be the only bounties placed on the Fiends. Where Daughtry was only interested in 3 local leaders that were giving the NCR some grief, Camp McCarran leader Colonel Shu wanted to eliminate Fiend leadership entirely. To do so, he would send a lone ranger, Ranger Bryce Anders, to dispatch the Fiend leader, but by the start of New Vegas, he had yet to return. And so Shu turned to the Courier for help. Tasked with saving Anders, any locals, and taking out the Fiend leader, the Courier would set off for Vault 3. By either going guns blazing or dressing up in your favorite Great Khan disguise, the Courier is able to gain access to the vault. Once inside, locating Anders and the captured Carabineers is fairly straightforward. It's dealing with the Fiend leader that would be the tough part. Motor Runner, armed with a chainsaw and accompanied by his fierce guard dogs Bone Nash and Gahash Bone, posed a formidable threat in close quarters combat. Nevertheless, armed with their unique skills and resources, the Courier possessed an advantage from the outset. The deck was stacked from the start. Following the deaths of their leaders, the ultimate fate of the Fiend Raider tribe is discovered through the New Vegas ending slides. Across nearly all ending slides, the Fiends stage an attack against Camp McCarran, doing so while the NCR's primary focus is on the second battle of the Hoover Dam. In the majority of these slides, the Fiends are depicted as being eliminated or facing near annihilation. Only in the endings where Motor Runner manages to survive is there a glimmer of hope for the Fiends to salvage any semblance of their former power. In the NCR ending, the Fiend attack is repelled, albeit at a heavy cost in NCR casualties. The independent ending paints a different picture, where the Fiends manage to overrun Camp McCarran, gaining control of Outer Vegas. However, in all other endings, the Fiends are either completely wiped out or severely weakened, reduced to a mere shadow of their former strength. Through the actions of Courier 6, the once chem-addicted warband known as the Fiends is reduced to ashes. Their reign of chaos and terror in the desert wasteland is brought to an end, bringing a greater sense of stability and control to the region. A bit more order would be had in the lawless Mojave wasteland. Thanks for listening. If you liked the video, be sure to share and subscribe. Have a good rest of your day. Cheers.
Never seen you around before. What do you want? You killed him? Well, shit. Here I dreamed up this whole elaborate revenge fantasy. Didn't really think I'd do it, but as long as the tubby bastard was actually alive, I could pretend like I would. Here, I owe you. Take it and get out of here, before I indulge my inner bitch and spoil the moment.